Hey, I'm Rachel Billingsley.
And I'm Luke Billingsley.
This is GMT Talk, our insider podcast where we talk about all things GMT.
Today on GMT Talk, we will be interviewing Jim Day, designer of the Panzer series, the MBT series, the Kaiser's Pirates, Iron and Oak, and now Ark the Underworld.
Okay, let's get into it. Well, we're glad to have you with us on GMT Talk and talk about some of your games and your new game, Ark. I'm very excited about this one.
Us, Jim.
Thank you for inviting me.
So you have a long series of success in the hobby, especially with your tactical war games. So we were wondering if you could tell us what first brought you and your games to GMT.
I actually, for the first time, met Andy Lewis at a convention. It was actually WWII. He saw a copy of my game, Kaiser's Pirates. Mm-hmm. We kind of went through it a little bit, and he thought that what would make it for a nice addition to GMT. So that, I believe, was 2008, and that then was my first title with GMT.
And the rest is history, I guess.
And the rest is history. Went on from there with a number of the Panzer series, MBT. I also did Iron and Oak, and now Ark is first game that's a little different for me from some of the others that I have done with GMT.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to that one as well, and we'll chat about that one a little bit later. Let's talk about the hot game right now, Panzer North Africa, which just won 3 Charles S. Roberts Awards, including Game of the Year in 2024.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Which is a big deal.
I was extremely pleased with that. I would have been thrilled with just one award, but getting all 3 was pretty exciting.
That seems to represent a resurgence of interest and excitement in the Panzer series. Did you do anything different or special with Panzer North Africa that helped create even more excitement among gamers for this game in the series?
First, I think the subject matter really did a lot for it. World War II, North Africa has always been extremely popular and remains so. And there's been a clamoring among the Panzer people to do North Africa. I thought strongly that that always was going to be a very popular title. I think also the contents and how well it covered all of the players in that theater. Sometimes games, they leave the Italians out thinking, well, they didn't do all that much. But they were a critical element in North Africa. In fact, overall, there were more Italian troops fielded there than the Germans. So that was important. Also, I thought we did a very good job covering all of the vehicles and the various elements, aircraft, everything else there. And having 34 scenarios, plus the solitaire game system with a fair number of scenarios representing that, really did a good part for the game. And I think we did a good job covering all of the background data, TO&Es, and the historical elements. So I think that combination in the package is really what made the difference. The biggest part, I think, is just North Africa being it's so popular.
But all those scenarios and a solo system and all the work on the historical side definitely helps too.
Oh, it did. And, Panzer is not a simple game. Tactical games, as a rule, are more complex than operational strategic level games. And so that's not every player's cup of tea because they tend to take a little longer. There's obviously more rules. And Panzer would never be accused of having a small rule book. So, but since the game is structured in more of a add-on, which you like type of game system, that really gets around a lot of that complexity. If you never want to do more than just the basic game, that's fine. But you can add other game elements from the advanced game and the optional rules that you like. So you're never required to play with every single rule in the game, which I think really does also add to the popularity of the system.
Definitely. It adds some freedom of play there. I like that.
Yes. Yeah, the players like the modular approach. They like this rule. They don't like this one as much. And I've always felt that the gamers decide what is fun to them, not what a designer is trying to say is fun. If you like this, you don't like this, then that's just fine.
So I'm going to ask you what maybe some others have been asking over the last few months, which is, do you currently have any plans to do more games in the Panzer series?
Yes, we're actually working on Tunisia expansion for North Africa, which would bring the Americans into play, which I think should be very nice. It was just too much to try to include them in the base game that's already big enough and way too much. So that is, I think, should be a nice expansion. Beyond that, I don't know necessarily what else. People always ask me about Panzer in the Pacific. But Panzer is by nature more of an armor focused game, although it has good, I feel, strong infantry elements and all that. I don't see much armor action with the Japanese. So I don't think it would ever do justice to that theater. I think there's plenty of other games that have done a great job tactically or otherwise in the Pacific. So I just don't see Panzer as an element. There could be some additional for some lesser known vehicles and things that could be added as kind of a pack onto itself that would include for all nations those types of vehicles. Because again, we just couldn't include every single vehicle that was there. So that would probably be, after Tunisia, that would be something to look at.
Now, I have a little bit of a trap question here. Make you choose between your babies in a way. So which series do you enjoy working on more, Panzer or MBT, and why?
I'm probably more of a post-World War II, more modern guy. I think because you can kind of get into a lot of different elements and technology with helicopters and anti-tank guided missiles and all that type of thing. MBT is set in 1987, so it's not too crunchy modern-wise. I think I've always enjoyed the more modern a little bit more, but it's not like night and day difference between the two. I'm still also want to do a new release of IDF, which would be in the Panzer in the MBT series than Panzer. Yeah. So that's also on the blocks to see, a new game there too.
It's funny you should mention IDF, because when we were talking to our dad about this gene, he said, ask him about IDF.
Yeah, I definitely want to redo IDF. Again, that would be, I think, a very popular title and in the series. So yes, that's definitely on the plate.
So when you're thinking about a more modern game like MBT, are there any unique challenges that you face working on a game like that versus Panzer, which is more World War II? Or is it just
it is dealing with the technology and managing, I guess, for a better word, the lethality that more modern things can field compared to World War II. I mean, these are still games. I mean, people are playing this for the enjoyment of the interaction in a game environment. So you're not trying to create something that is just so lethal that, I mean, what's the fun in that? I mean, this isn't warfare. There's no intent to create warfare or anything associated with that. So I think it's a balance of the technology and trying to model that in such a way that it isn't either one overwhelming or just so lethal that it's like, gee, why bother with this? So that's where in the modern world, I cannot see something based more modern, because things just become so complex that I don't necessarily know on a tactical level how you would necessarily model that in a game. I know some things have been done and that's okay, but that's, to me, is more of the challenge in the modern world, is the technology.
So let's talk about the new P500 edition, ARC, the Underworld. We're excited about this game. I know you are. Can you tell us a little bit about the origins of ARC and what inspired you to make a tactical sci-fi game?
ARC actually goes back more years than I'd like to admit to. Some of the original concept art was developed in the mid-90s when I had an idea doing, and this would have been more of a console or computer-based game. I moved away from that, and always in the back of my mind, I had an idea of how could I do a board game that would still be in the same theme and genre as you're seeing ARC now. So I actually started working on the concept of a board game version of it actually before COVID hit. I had originally proposed it to Gene just as an outline of an idea, and he thought, that had some good potential to it. So I started working on it, and then, COVID hit, what really threw a wrench in, face-to-face gaming and all that type of thing. And I kind of was working through the idea as I was still doing the Panzer and the MBT projects. So, but it is always something I wanted to do. I really enjoy sci-fi. And of course, my games are tactical games. So it was trying to, maneuver that as a sci-fi tactical game. And so much stuff has been done in space and on other planets and all that type of thing. I thought, well, maybe there was something we could do that's sci-fi, but it's still based on Earth and in current times, not necessarily the future. There's some futuristic elements to it beyond the aliens themselves, but so that was the idea. I always try to think about something that hasn't been done 100 times already, so that it would be something that could be interesting. And gamers really enjoy sci-fi. I know GMT's had a lot of success with sci-fi titles, so that's really I've been working on it. It's a concept that's been in my mind for a long time, and so that's how it came about.
What aspects of ARC do you think are going to be really enjoyable for wargamers? Because I know that's a big part of GMT's market.
It's the ability to utilize the characters on either side, because it isn't just the humans and some an opponent. Both sides are actual playable in an asymmetrical way, the characteristics, but you really get to customize the characters in a scenario by giving them the different types of weapons you want them to have and the different types of other equipment you want them to have, which I think is a big plus for the replayability of every scenario. The game includes 13 scenarios that you can play any scenario you want, but you also can play them sequentially as a campaign game. And so it really allows you to use many different tactical approaches where, I'm going to use these weapons with this character and I'm going to add these accessories to them. And then, that didn't work out so well, so I can replay it and I can take a different approach to it. So that's, I think, part of the appeal. Beyond the subject matter, but I think that's part of the appeal is customization within the scenarios. Each scenario is certainly structured that says, here are the characters, here's what you need to accomplish, here's the base weapons available, but what character you give each weapon to and all that type of thing really allows for a lot of flexibility. It's not that you have to build your own scenario, because some players like doing that, but a lot of them don't like to be bothered with that. Mm-hmm. So it does give you a lot of flexibility within the scenarios for your characters.
So you always start on the street level, is that right? And then down to the sewers and then down
again,
to
you
their
can play any
base, I guess?
You
can do any order. Okay.
But if you play the campaign, it starts with scenario 1 and you play through scenario 13, which goes from the town, the sewers, and then it goes into the lair of the Res.
Okay.
And you can, any scenario you want to play at any time just to see what it's like, you can do that.
Nice. That's something I really wanted to know, so that was helpful to me.
You mentioned the appeal of being able to play both sides. So is it strictly a 2-player game, 1 player on each side, or are more players?
No, you could, because each scenario, you typically have 6 operators on the ARC side, and then you have anywhere from 6 to 8 Res characters. So you can certainly have multiple players, and then each person who's playing on either side could control 1 or more characters. The only thing is you do have a common hand of action cards. So there's a hand for the Res side and there's a hand for the ARC side. So those, if you're playing, and let's say 4 players are playing 2 on a side, each side of 2 would have to share a common hand. They're not individual hands of cards. So is it limited to 2? No, it's designed to play it, well, obviously with 2 players, but you can certainly play with more players. you would be working, in common with collaborating to accomplish either the arc or the res objectives for that particular scenario.
I'd actually like to know more about the res aliens. So are there just the 6, or do you pick from a bunch of different ones? And then do you have a favorite?
There are 6 classes of res aliens. So it's different from the arc where there's 16 specific operators. The res have 6 classes of characters. There's actually 20 of those characters spread out over the 6 classes. And a scenario will tell you which and how many of each class is available for that scenario. And so they're not, just by the nature of their characters, they're not so distinct like an individual human. So you can have the guard class, you can have the brute class, you can have the scout class, and then there's characters within each of those classes. And a scenario tells you you have so many of this, so many of that, so many of that available to you. As far as a favorite, I think the brute's a good character. They are kind of in the middle between the lighter and the heavier, but they have a lot of flexibility as far as which you can assign them to do, because skills are an important element within the game. All the arc operators have a specific skill is assigned to them, and that's what they have. That's the skills for the res are listed as available in a particular scenario, which ones and how many. And then you can assign them pretty much to any character, and they're linked to that character just for that scenario. They don't go on from scenario to scenario. I tried to, like I said, creating asymmetrical aspects to each side, so it wasn't like the same thing as dealing with each other. So how you do certain things and how weapons work and how that type of thing is unique to either the arc or the res. So, and I think that should be an appealing aspect to the game too for players that,
right,
hey, I'm playing this side or the other, it's just not the same thing going on to each other.
Yeah, definitely. I like the idea of assigning skills to the res. I mean, that creates so many different combinations for replayability.
Again, and that helps into replayability, because typically the skills are listed that you can select this, this, or this. And so maybe one of this 3, and because typically they'll have 4 or 5 different skills, but you must select within a group of one. So once the time you play the scenario, you may select this skill, but the next time you'll say, I'm going to try it with this skill instead and see how that plays out. So obviously with dice in any game, there's a certain element of luck, but it really tends to always average out because, it's really your tactical decisions that make the difference when you're playing.
Yeah.
right.
Cool. Okay, so now on the other side, the 16 special operations characters, and do you have a current favorite of the arc?
I would say right now, and I've obviously played the game a fair amount, I would say Kip is one of my favorites. You'll see his card and some of the new promotional material that's coming out real soon. So I like the character, because within each scenario, an operator is assigned as Arc 1, who is the leader of that particular scenario. And Kip is one of the characters that you will find in various scenarios, because you don't have the same operators for every scenario. And he is, when he's in a scenario, he's typically Arc 1 as the leader of the group.
Speaking of promotional material, the Inside GMT article that you wrote that's talking about the combat system, I thought was really cool. And I just wanted to know more about maybe how you came up with that system.
The dice comparison system I originally used in Kaiser's Pirates. And I always have liked any game where both sides, both players are always doing something. You're not sitting around and waiting for another player to finish their turn. You can leave the table and go get lunch and then come back later. And I think it instills in players the feeling that I'm controlling my own destiny, and that if I'm rolling an attack and the defender then rolls their defense. So you aren't totally in the hands of one side or the other. You do have a part of what's going on all the time. And that also comes into with the play of the action cards, because you and your opponent are playing cards from your hand all the time, whether it's your opponent is playing a combat card and you're playing a defense card in response. Or, of course, force cards are played whenever during the course of a turn, whether it's your turn or your opponent's turn. So you're not limited, because, of course, combat cards are only played when you are the player attacking, and defense and move cards are also when it's your turn. And defense cards are only played when you're defending, but force cards can be played at any time during a turn, whether it's you're the active player or you're not.
Okay.
So what does the force card do?
They're whatever you can do that isn't defense, move, or combat. So they have other elements that you play that affect what a certain character can do or not do. So there's one card that, because this game uses initiative system where not all of your characters are going to be active in a single turn, typically. So you're going to have to decide by how many initiative points, in a sense, how many characters. There's a table that you roll on that says that you get so many initiatives. So if you have 6 characters and you get 3, you have to decide which 3 I'm going to activate. And they're typically leader plus a number, and sometimes it's just a number. So most of them being leader plus a number, you of course have to activate your leader, and then you can activate another character or whatever. So some force cards allow you to activate additional characters, because some of on the initiative table, there is one result that's 1. So that means you would only be able to activate a single character. And I think that also adds a lot to the game, in that you're never, you can set up the best plans in the world and maneuver your characters, and then you determine the initiative and you only get 2 guys. So, there's a lot of decisions you have to make, and sometimes a lot of them are very limiting also in what you can potentially do. So force cards can add additional activations. There's also a card that says when this player is going to activate a particular character, that his turn is ended before he's able to do anything. Wow. So there's a lot of variety in the action card deck. There's 150 cards, and there's 61 different types of cards within that deck. So again, that really adds a lot to a scenario, because you can really be dealt some bad luck in some cards, and then necessarily then you play it, and it creates totally different games on how the cards are necessarily distributed. So force cards kind of cover everything else that movement, combat, and defense don't cover.
Now, you mentioned how weapons also can work differently for both sides. In playing the game and testing it, which of the weapons is your favorite right now?
I guess on the ARC side, I like the M7 rifle. That's the new rifle that has been adopted by the U.S. forces. So it's, it's between the M16, which is more used as the M4 carbine, and say the, M17 or battle rifle. So the M7 and the Series N, the machine gun that goes with it, the M250, is really meant to bridge between, and this is real life, is meant to bridge between the two sets of weapons. The M4 uses a 5.56 round, and the battle rifles use a 7.62 round. So the new weapons are a 6.8 round that are somewhere in the middle. So, the whole idea of the M16 that came into existence during the Vietnam War was the fact that you didn't, and the soldiers at that time and Marines were using the M14, which was a derivative from the old M1 Garand from World War II. And it was felt that the ranges that gun can fire were obviously not needed within the Vietnam environment. And with the 5.56, you could carry, for the amount of load, you could carry far more rounds than you could carry at 7.62. So the 6.8 is in the middle there. And I like it because it's new, it's right now. And so I think that adds an element to the game. So in some of the new promotional material I'll be sending across for the articles in this month's newsletter, I list all the different weapons that are available to either the ARC or the Res.
Great.
Cool.
And did you have a favorite weapon on the Res side?
Well, I think the beamers for the Res, when the humans first encounter these characters, they see them carrying like bow-like weapons, that shoot darts and this kind of, they think, what the heck is this? This is pretty ancient stuff. But when they get into contact with some of the higher level Res characters within their hierarchy, they're carrying these weapons that the ARC, as I said in the first article, you don't have any idea what the Res call any of these weapons. So they just kind of give them names from things that they're familiar with, movies, books, video games, all this type of thing. So they see these other weapons that they then call beamers and heavy beamers, which are actually railguns that the Res use. So they kind of have a glow about them when they're firing, so that's how they kind of got. It's not like phasers out of Star Trek, but it gives that kind of a what that looks like, and that's how it got the name of beamer and heavy beamer. So the Res may at first look like, these unsophisticated characters firing bow and arrows at us, but they're actually pretty sophisticated characters.
That's awesome. I love the lore that you're crafting already with this game, because I was like fully locked in, like this is a real life situation.
Yeah.
So you're doing a great job with the lore.
That's the hope. It's not so sci-fi that you can't relate to it. That so far, I mean, anybody who's a student and likes sci-fi describes sci-fi as being real as opposed to fantasy, which is fantasy. All sci-fi is based on some reality of some type. I mean, something that was sci-fi in the 1930s, I mean, all that stuff is real today. So,
right. Yes.
So that's where players, I think, can really relate to sci-fi, because it's something that, I see how that works. I understand that and that type of thing. So, and that's where I tried to do a setting that was now as opposed to, 300 years in the future type of thing. So kind of, there's still a lot of sci-fi elements, but you can still relate to what's going on.
Well, we are going to let you go soon, but we usually have a recurring question that we like to ask. We wanted to know if there were any people in the gaming hobby who have had a positive influence on your growth and development as a game designer.
I think really the first person that I think I could easily say that would be Craig Taylor. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but he was the first, you'd say, professional game person that I came into contact with. And at the time, he and his partner, Steve Peak, had gone to a new company, Heritage, which was based in Texas. And they were looking to create, some additional games. And they approached me at a convention that was actually in the Detroit area about potentially doing what that was at that time, Panzer, as a board game with them. They subsequently left Heritage, and that's how Yaquinto was formed by Craig and Steve. I then asked to get my game back from Heritage and gave it to Yaquinto, and that's how the first version of Panzer was published. So yeah, I'd say, and I knew Craig for many, many years, and I'd say he was the person, yeah.
Great. Thank you for sharing. All right, well, that's it for GMT Talk today. Thank you, Jim, for taking the time to talk with us and for being our guest. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'd certainly be happy to come back on in the future.
All right.
Yes, we should. Well, thank you, Jim, and we'll see you all next time on GMT Talk.